Greetings, beautiful people. I am Dr. William Menefield, Assistant Professor of Jazz Studies at the great University of Iowa, and I have a very special guest here with me today, Kylie Buddin. How you doing, Kylie?
Doing great.
Glad to have you here today. So let's just jump right into it. You were born right here in Iowa City.
Indeed.
Wow.
At University of Iowa Hospitals.
That is incredible. I have been here only for a short time. This is my second year as a professor at the University of Iowa, and you are the first Iowa City native that I have ever met. I mean, lots of Iowans, but you're the first Iowa City native. So this is your hood. This is your town. This is your place.
Indeed.
Well, we're so glad you're here. So you're a musician, right?
Yeah.
And you've been a musician for your whole life? How long have you been into it?
Started playing, so I played in youth orchestra and things like that, starting about age 8, I think.
What instrument did you start?
I started on violin and cornet were the two instruments that my family tried to get me to take. Oddly enough, my musical journey actually starts with going to see Deliverance when I was 5.
Wow.
Which was an entirely,
No, you have to tell us. You have to tell. You can't tease that and then not tell us the story.
My dad took me to see Deliverance when I was 5, when it was in the theaters. And the one thing I came out of the movie with was, I want to play banjo. It was like, I saw the whole dueling banjo scene. I was like, I want to play banjo. My dad was like, well, I'll tell you what, you spend a year learning how to play guitar and show me that you want to learn how to play an instrument, I'll buy you a banjo. And so a couple of years went past, and then my 8th birthday, I was like, this is it, I'm going to learn how to play guitar. And so I sat down and I learned how to play Neil Young's Ohio. Was the first song I learned. And for the next year, I diligently practiced every day, and I loved guitar. It was like I was huge. It was always, as a young kid, it was music and guitars were a big part of my life. But at the end of that year, I was like, okay, Dad, I've done it. I played guitar for a year. And he goes, why would you want to play banjo? You can play guitar. And that was the end of the discussions. And I'm about to turn 54, and I'm still waiting for my banjo.
Man, I was hoping that you were going to say, I got my banjo and I've been playing.
No, but I will say this. When I was a kid, we didn't have a lot of money, but we were fortunate to have instruments. And when I turned old enough to drive, we didn't have a car. We couldn't afford a car. But my dad had a Martin D35, and when I turned 16, I was allowed to start playing the D35. And I would say that D35 has taken me a lot more places than a $500 car would have in 1986. So.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about those places that it took you, because I'm assuming that you mean that you got into this as a professional, right? Eventually, what started as just love and passion and in pursuit of the banjo, right?
Exactly.
Became what you do. So tell us about that.
I probably started performing about 1982, 1983. Played in punk rock bands for years. Played around the state, played lots of, church basements and, various various home basements, things like that. Eventually graduated out of that and started doing other styles of music. I've played in roots Americana bands. I've done some blues. I've been in a heavy metal band. Was not very good at that. Taking a stab at surf music, lots of rock genres, blues genres. I wish I could play jazz. It's a passion of mine, but I lack the formal education, and I kind of question whether I'm actually smart enough.
Well, I will have a talk about that off camera, Kylie, because I submit to you that you are. At any rate, and speaking of that punk rock that you mentioned, I heard that you're like instrumental in the punk rock scene here in Iowa City. Like you're kind of a big deal on the punk rock scene, right?
I don't know about that. I mean, I've been around for a long time. I was lucky to be here when when punk rock started to bloom in Iowa City, like there was really a scene. I was the, as one of my friends from that time period has said once, yeah, you were one of the baby punks. So, and it's virtue as somebody who's just sort of stuck around, I became part of the institution, I guess. And then due to my professional life working with young people, that sort of extended that. I've gotten to I've known pretty much every generation of punk rockers in the town since 1982 to current. And so I feel like I've always kind of had my finger on that pulse, and had some wonderful experiences in it. And I probably could teach a class in it at this point.
Absolutely. That sounds amazing. And speaking of young people and teaching, you shared with me that that's something you're really passionate about.
I would say at some point in my career, I realized I was never going to be a rock star, I didn't want to do the things that, there's the hard work that goes into being a musician and selling yourself. And that just making music appeals to me, playing live appeals to me. The business of music doesn't appeal to me. And so when I was given the opportunity to come back to UAY as an adult and work there, it's just, there's something magical about that experience when you take a young person from vision of this thing that they can't give language to, they can't write music, but they have a vision of what they hear in their head, and making that vision, that intangible thing, a tangible thing. That look in their eyes is just, it's like, it almost gives me shivers every time it happens. When you could just see it in their eyes when you're like, is this what you were hearing? And they're like,
That sounds awesome. I love that. So let's talk about United Action for Youth, UAY, because you've been doing that for a long time now, right?
Yeah. So I worked for UAY in high school from 83 to 86. I came back in 93 or 94. This is my 29th year at UAY. Wow. So I've been over half my life doing it. It's so bizarre. I feel like, I know I'm 54 years old, but I feel like being around young people is like a stasis pod.
Yeah,
I feel like awesome. I'm 54. My body's definitely 54. My spirit's more 35. 30,
oh, come on, Kylie. You look good, man. Come on now. Well, I love this. So, just tell us a little bit about the changes you've seen in the kids, and kind of they're learning more about music production, performance. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So, the kids that I work with are kids that traditional music systems don't work for them. They're just, either what they're into is not, what's being taught, or they're not in a mindset where where they're interested in learning the rules of music, but they want to learn how to communicate. And so that's been really fun. It's led me to, it's hard to describe, but to me, all art forms are high art, and to see, to help someone who's learning how to rap, to explain to them what a triplet is, and to have them go, oh, it's da 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 da. I'm like, yeah, that's it, and their minds open up, and it's like you see all those connections happen, and it's been really great to be part of the affirming that what they do is art and is just as valuable as all other forms.
I love that.
The elevation that comes from that is just priceless. So
that's beautiful. Yeah. That is absolutely beautiful. And your passion for working with the youth has led you to now be a board member, right?
Yeah.
You're a member of the board of directors of the Summer of the Arts. So talk to us a little bit about that.
I would love to see young people, in a more, in a front and center sort of way. I think that the art that I've seen, the physical art and the oral art and that I've seen young people make is just amazing, and anything I can do to help bring that to the forefront of the community, and so that everybody sees that and sees the joy that young people bring. It's absolutely priceless. They experience joy on a level that's just unbelievable, and when they make their art, they're communicating that. So. Anything that I can do to help bring more volume to that voice. I can't create. It's their voice. They're creating it. But whatever I could do to help, sort of turn the knob up a little bit. So
that sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. So, is there anything else that you want our viewers to know?
I love Summer of the Arts. I've had some of my best summer experiences through Summer of the Arts. The single best day of music listening I've ever had in my life was at Jazz Fest with Dr. Lonnie Smith and Christian Scott. That day was like, I don't think I've ever smiled that much in my entire life. And I think that everybody should come down to every event. Every year I see somebody that 5 or 10 years later I go, I saw them once, and it was, there's a lot of that. The 4th of July Jazz Fest is big for me. Although last year was my first experience with soul and blues, and that's going to be my next. I saw J.C. Brooks.
Right. So we have Jazz Fest coming up in July, July 1, 2, and 3, right? First, second, and third. We're hoping to see everybody there, and then of course the Soul and Blues Festival, September 23rd and 24th. So we have amazing opportunities for people to come out and get those same kind of experiences that you have, right?
Exactly.
Right. Well, that sounds great. That sounds great. Well, thank you so much, Kylie, for joining us today. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and peace and love to you all.